Welcome to the Federalist Society 2010 National Student Symposium. Thank you all for braving the weather and the travel conditions to be here with us to what we're sure to be a fantastic symposium. My name is Ulloa. I'm the symposium chair member of the Penn Law chapter. I'd like to start off tonight by thanking Gene Meyer in the Federalist Society for inviting Penn Law School and our chapter to host the event this year. We're particularly excited about this year's topic, Originalism 2.0. And how it's appropriately placed in Philadelphia and at Penn Law School. Back in 1790, James Wilson, one of our nation's founders, gave the nation's first law lectures at Penn Law School. And just a few years before that, and just down the street, our nation's Declaration of Independence and Constitution were also ratified here in Philadelphia. So we're excited about tonight's panels and the panels of this weekend. It should prove to be a great event. With that, I'd like to introduce the Dean of our law school, Mike Fitz. Michael Fitz is the Dean and Bernard G. Siegel Professor of Law at the University of Pennsylvania Law School. Since becoming Dean in 2000, he's been a leading proponent of integrating legal teaching and scholarship with the approaches of other disciplines. He firmly believes that tomorrow's lawyers must have critical thinking skills and develop analytical reasoning skills from multiple intellectual perspectives. From 1979 to 1981, after earning an AB from Harvard and a JD from Yale Law School, Dean Fitz clerked for the late Honorable A. Leon Higginbotham of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. From 81 to 85, he served as the attorney advisor in the Office of Legal Counsel at the U.S. Department of Justice, where he received a Special Commendation Award from the Attorney General of the United States. In 1985, Dean Fitz joined the Penn Law faculty. He's written on questions of administrative law, presidential power and separation of powers, and he has argued for improving the structure of political parties and executive branch decision-making. He is a member of the Executive Committee of the American Law Deans Association, where he serves as Vice President for the World Affairs Council, the Policy Advisory Board of the Reinvestment Fund, and the Law and Political Process Study Group of American Political Science Association. With that, Dean of our law school, Dean Michael Fitz.
I'm sure that's more than you ever wanted to know about me. But I can't tell you how excited we are here at Penn Law School to welcome you to Philadelphia and to the law school. And as Ryan said, the place where the first law lectures were given. What Ryan didn't mention, of course, is that future Justice Wilson gave his lectures to Washington's cabinet, setting a wonderful record for Penn Law classes. That was the first class at the University of Pennsylvania Law School, which continues to this day. In any event, it really is great to see you all here. You're an incredible group. Very energized, and I expect to see lots of sparks flying throughout the different panels here. And given the weather, I'm sure you want to have lots of sparks. I want to congratulate all of you for making it through the wind and the snow. I'm sure you thought you were going to the University of Alaska, not the University of Pennsylvania here today. And I have to say, as I look out, I sort of wonder whether we would have been just as good as we should have had the Winter Olympics here in Philadelphia, because we seem to have had more snow than they had in Vancouver. In any event, let me just say this convention represents what I think American law schools are about, which is the interplay of ideas. And there's no better place within universities to see battles over the future of the country and also the battles of how those ideas will play out around them. And this society, I think, has been involved in more of the legal questions, substantial legal questions, as anyone: constitutional design, government and the state, constitutional role. For me, and for those of us who have been around for a while, it's hard to believe that it was started in 1982 by some of the people in this room. And over the years, it's had an incredible impact, and that's part of the reason we are really delighted that you're here today. And we're also delighted so many members of the Penn Law faculty are on different panels for all different political perspectives, and that the entire Penn Law faculty was very supportive from all political perspectives in having the Federalist Society here. So I want to welcome you all. I know the dinner tomorrow night is going to be down at the Marriott, and given the weather, we will provide skis so that you can go down Chestnut Street to get there. In any event, my job really is simply to both to say how delighted we are to have you, and then to ask that the chair of our first panel, who is known to everybody here, the Honorable Greg Garre, 44th Solicitor General of the United States, who will be chairing that panel, up to the podium to introduce his panel. So, Greg, thank you.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you all. The first panel for this session and for this evening is going to be entitled Originalism, a Rationalization for Conservatism, or a Principal Theory of Interpretation. And I think that there's something that feels right to me about debating originalism on a snowy night not far from Valley Forge. And so I commend all of you for coming here and joining us. I have to say, as a practitioner before the court, I think this is a particularly important topic. We've seen important changes before the court in the last few decades in the use of an originalist mode of interpretation. I mean, much like we've seen changes in the use of different modes of statutory interpretation. A couple of years ago, we saw one of the most interesting and significant cases on originalism decided by the Supreme Court interpreting the Second Amendment. I think that case in itself is an interesting example of how the doctrine has evolved and how it's being used today. And I think we have, most importantly, some great panelists here today who have thought about and written about originalism extensively, and so it'll be fun to hear their views. The first panelist is Professor Marianne Case, who is the Arnold I. Schur Professor of Law at the University of Chicago Law School. Her scholarship focuses primarily on the regulation of sex, gender, and sexuality and the history of feminism. Prior to joining the University of Chicago Law School, she studied at the University of Munich. She litigated for Paul Weiss, and she taught at the University of Virginia Law School. Our second panelist is Professor Richard Fallon. He is the Ralph S. Tyler Jr. Professor of Constitutional Law at Harvard Law School. He's an expert on constitutional law and federal courts, and he's written a number of books on constitutional law. He's co-edited textbooks on constitutional law, one that I'm familiar with, Hart and Wexler's Federal Courts and Federal System, and many others. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and a member of the American Law Institute. Our next panelist is Professor John McGinnis. He's a Stanford Clinton Senior Professor of Constitutional Law at Northwestern University Law School. He has written extensively on constitutional and international law. He's also been widely published in journals that people actually read, like the Wall Street Journal and stuff like that. Prior to entering academia, he served as a law clerk to Judge Ken Starr on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and he served in the Department of Justice as a Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Office of Legal Counsel. Professor Saikrishna Prakash is the David Lurton Massey Professor of Law and Sullivan and Cromwell Professor of Law at the University of Virginia Law School. His scholarship focuses on the origins and meanings of presidential powers. He clerked for Judge Silberman on the D.C. Circuit as well as Justice Thomas. He practiced law for a couple of years at Simpson Thacher in New York, and since then has taught law at University of, most recently, Virginia. And Professor Keith Whittington is the William Nelson Cromwell Professor of Politics at Princeton University and the Director of the Graduate Studies in the Department of Politics. He's the author of many books on constitutional law and separation of powers. He's been a John M. Olin Foundation Faculty Fellow and American Council of Learned Science Society's Junior Faculty Fellow and a visiting scholar at the Social Philosophy and Policy Center and a visiting professor at the University of Texas Law School. I urge you to welcome all of them. We are going to have each of them present their views for about 10-15 minutes or so, and then have a discussion ourselves, and then invite your questions for our panelists as well. So I think I'll start with our first panelist then, unless I think all the panelists should come up, and assuming they made it. Thank you. Professor Pace, do you want to?
The order I discussed with Jake Meyer involved me going last.
I think we were all told to be last.
Do we have a preference on order? Do we care?
I don't care.
Why don't we go down the line if that'll work?
All right, should I go over there? Should I stay here?
Up to you.